Hi, Captain Bruce CHARD here, Hatch ProStaff, and I'm happy here to sit with you today and show you why and how I like to create my own tarpon leader, my own taper of my leader, because I think it's really important. And we're going to share with you how I make it and how I break it down and how it's going to act for you when you actually get on the flats and get that all-important line, leader, and fly straight line presentation. Regulating slack on the flats is the #1 reason why anglers miss fish. They make a presentation, the leader doesn't lay out straight, it falls back. They immediately have to regain and strip your line in to come tight. This is the #1 thing you want to do all the time when you take that original shot, is to automatically, without any guide or anybody ever telling you anymore, the first thing you want to do when you make that shot off the bow is get that line to lay out straight and come tight to that fly automatically. Rod tip down, straighten line, and strip hard until you can feel the tautness of that fly. And having a leader system that's tapered correctly in what I believe should be a continuation of the front taper of your fly line, that will allow the energy to be contained and shifted all the way down to the end of the fly for a great straight line presentation. And this is how we're going to come to that conclusion today. We're going to start out by understanding that a lot of people in the salt like to talk about pound test. So you go 80 pounds, 60 pounds, 50, and hey, what kind of shock do you have here? What kind of butt section do you have here? And everybody talks about the pound test. I think it's kind of irrelevant, the pound test, when you get over like 30 pounds. You're not going to be breaking that stuff off. But we really coordinate that pound test with true diameter. Because what we say, hey, are you using a 50 or 60 here? What we really mean is they're using a thicker or thinner line right then or there. But all the different materials are different sizes and diameters with different manufacturers. So you kind of have to have a manufacturer that offers a material that breaks down in equal diameter increments, which then when you taper down on your own style of taper that you like to match up with the front taper of the fly line that you're choosing to use, along with the size of the fly and the wind conditions or the weather conditions that you're fishing in, makes a big difference on how that fly is going to lay out straight. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to cover this by talking about the diameters and how we're going to break down our leader and create a continuation of our front taper that will contain all the energy that we work really hard to put into our system. We don't want to lose any of that by having too much of a large diameter difference from our connections to our knots. We want to go from a nice, smooth, tapered breakdown, which will help contain that energy all the way to the fly, to increase that straight line, increase the odds of a straight line presentation to the fish. Very important. So what we want to do is figure out, we have our diameter of our fly line, okay? And since we don't carry a micrometer with us everywhere we go, we want to try to see what material we have ahead of time before we go on our trip. And we can kind of get a good idea about how close we can get the diameter to the end of the fly line. We don't necessarily want it exactly equal, but if we do, that's better than not so much equal, right? So we don't want a dramatic breakdown in diameter from the front taper to the leader connection. That will cause hinging. Now, a lot of people like to think, since you have the loop connection, a lot of guys are really experienced, they think that a loop-to-loop connection causes hinging because it allows a little bit of play there possibly, or movement. I personally believe that that's not the case. Usually the hinging is caused by a great diameter difference between the end of the front taper and the butt section connection, okay? Now, something key here to remember. When you spend 80 to 150 bucks on a fly line, the reason why we spend that much money on a fly line is because of the beautiful taper that is built by the machinery and extruded just right. Well, why do we need all that? Well, this is what transfers energy smoothly all the way down from the belly of the line and right into the leader. If we don't have a beautiful, smooth, tapered front taper of your fly line, you're not going to have that smooth transition of power. So what we do and what we've been doing forever, and it's all good. If it works for you, great, but I believe this method's going to be a lot better for you. We'll have this beautiful taper that we pay all this money for, and then we put a giant 6-foot piece of single mono as a butt section and completely screw up the entire taper and transfer of energy to your leader. So what I like to do, like I said before, is I like to transfer that energy smoothly into same diameter or just a little bit smaller in the butt section, and then incrementally drop down in diameter and taper down equally with equal sections of that same type of diameter all the way down to the end of the leader, and therefore we have a nice continuation of this $100 taper that you bought all the way to your fly. That will help contain all the energy that you need and increase the odds dramatically of, even on a wide loop presentation, of your line and leader laying out straight right away. That saves you valuable time and space to work with, allows you to come tight to your fly quicker, and therefore work on your secondary presentation to move that fly just right in front of the fish and focus on what you need to be focusing on, rather than paying attention to how much slack is in your system because your leader didn't lay out straight because you didn't have the correct leader system. So we're going to start out with some new Hatch 80-pound, or what I would like to say 0.035 diameter, medium hard monofilament. Now, I like to go, like I said, equal increments. So I found that when I have 6 sections of a leader, if I just simply do an arm's length like this, I'm about 5'10", but whatever, you can adjust. Of each section, it breaks down to give me a leader of around 12 feet, which is really nice. And again, we're going to start out with a loop-to-loop connection. I like it. You don't have to use a loop-to-loop connection. You can connect it whatever way works best for you, but I like to do it. So I'm just going to do a simple perfections loop. Nothing big. I'm not a fancy guy. I think the way that I design this stuff works maybe better than what I have to offer. So we're going to just make our simple perfections loop here nice and easy. Pliers here. I like to use my teeth. Nice 90-degree bend on that tag, that's perfect. So super easy, trim it short, and you're ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and loop this connection right now, because what I've done on the water before when I'm building these leaders is I'll be in such a hurry, here comes the fish, blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, I tie the whole leader up and I didn't loop it to loop, and I tie the fly on, and I throw it all out and I go, cast now. And the guy goes to make a cast, and there's no leader on there. So we've got our perfections loop. No problem. Now we're going to go from that 80-pound 0.035 to this 60-pound 0.032. So we're going down 3 1/1000ths. Again, nice and easy. It keeps things simple. Breakdown. One little pull off. We're going to actually create a little heat. Do that 2 or 3 times, create a little heat. Takes a lot of the memory out of this leader system real quick, and we're going to do a simple blood knot, okay? But what's key here is you want to make sure that you have the correct amount of loops around each blood knot, because if you have too many wraps, you're not going to be able to seat the knot up as smoothly, and if the knot doesn't seat up smoothly, you will lose strength. It will cut into itself and break, even at a heavy pound test. So I like to lube it with my mouth and also lick my fingers. And also pinch my fingers on the inside of this knot like this to create a little space. And I'm going to wrap loosely 3 times. See how that big loop I'm leaving? 1, 2, 3. Now I have moisture on my fingers at all times. And now since I've made that large loop connection right there in the end, I have plenty of room to put the tag through that loop. And I'm going to come around the other side here now. And I'm going to loop it on every wrap. 1, lick, 2, lick, 3, lick. 3 on 3. We're going to come back through the opposite direction, nice and easy. Now, just going to give a little bit of a pop. Now see how loose the knot is? It's tied, yeah, I pulled it tight enough where it's not going to come undone. But here's the key thing to making successful knots, is you have to have tons of lubrication, more than you ever think you do. And the difference in humidity during the day and the temperatures have a big difference on how your line is going to seat up on the knot. So if you're doing this at home, it's good. I like to put a little bucket of water, a little bowl of water right here, so I can dip the whole knot in the water. Let it soak for just a second. That allows the water to get within every crack and crevice of the knot, and it will allow me to pull this large diameter line up nice and smooth and beautiful. That is about as perfect knot as you can get. Now, what we don't have also, since it's cinched up really nice and smooth, is we don't have any bite marks or any kinks or any stretches at all. This is clean mono, right into knot to knot. Now, the blood knot, as we all know, they're jam knots. So when you tie a knot here and a tie a knot here, you pull them tight, they jam together. So the tighter that they pull together, the more they cinch up. It is important to not get these end wraps where they don't tighten up. And if you get that, usually that means you have too many wraps, okay, on one or the other of the diameters, right? It's too many wraps for how thick the diameter is, and it doesn't allow it to bite into, or you didn't have enough lubrication, okay? And sometimes you can't get enough lubrication just by licking it, right? So we got our fly line to perfection loop, we got our 80 pound, now we're down to our 60 pound. I'm going to trim this kind of close. We don't need to leave tags. You'll be pretty strong without it. And we're going to break down to our 50 pound or our .029. Okay, so another 3/1000 of an inch drop down. It's really hard to find monofilament from manufacturers that break down in equal increments, and this is key because if you go from some companies 50 pound and it's .040 and you go down to their 40 pound and it's .025, there's such a large difference in diameter there that you will have a hard time getting a good knot connection there. So again, we're going to do a full length here. Stretch it out a little bit so it's easy to work with. 2 or 3 times you usually create enough heat to give yourself plenty of kinkless mono, no problem. And mono's cheap, so make sure that you leave plenty of tags, no problem here, okay? Again, lick the fingers, create a loop. We're going to do 3 turns on the 60 pound, and we're going to come back and do 4 turns on the 50. Again, we're going to do that. So the less the diameter is, the more turns you're going to have to apply. And again, you can play with this with the different materials that you have, but this works really great with this hatch stuff. And as you can see, this high quality hatch mono is knotting up really nice and really smooth. It's really, really important to make sure you find a manufacturer that creates monofilament that does this, because I can't tell you how frustrating it is to have to tie a knot 2 or 3 times because it's kinking and it's breaking because of the dissimilar diameter breakdown and because just maybe the characteristics of the mono does not allow you to cinch it up nice and tight. So now we have a nice smooth transfer of equal diameter all the way down. This is our top half of our leader. Now we're going to go to our 40 pound and we're at 0.26 now. One more time here. Again, we're going to do a little heat. So now some people might ask me, Bruce, why don't you use all fluorocarbon on your tarpon leaders? 2, 3, we're going to do 4 and 4 here, guys, just so you know. And the reason I say that as well, tarpon need to have the fly above them at all times. If the fly gets too low or too close to them in the water depth, they won't eat it. Or if it gets below them, they won't eat it, or even equal. So you got to give the tarpon a chance to feel that they have the element of surprise on the fly. So the fly needs to stay high and above the fish at all times. And if it doesn't, you reduce your odds of getting that fish to take your fly, okay? 4 on this one. So, with that being said, mono floats, fluoro sinks. So I personally like to have my tarpon leaders in mono until I get to the end where I can do fluoro. Again, beautiful knots on every one there, seating up killer. I love this stuff. So, if your mono leader stays high and floats higher in the water column, you're going to be able to keep your fly buoyant in the water system. Be able to keep it high, and when you strip it at the right speed, you're going to be able to easily keep it at a buoyant. If you strip too fast, the fly will ride up at an angle. If you strip too slow, the fly will sink a little bit. I've found many times that, especially on nice weather days, if you have any tweakage to the downside or the upside of your strip, a lot of times they won't eat the fly. So it's really important to be able to have a floating leader that will be able to, 1, keep your fly buoyant, and 2, most importantly, how many times you take a shot at a fish and you're just a little too far left or you're a little short, you got too long, you got to strip it and make another shot, whatever you got to do. A lot of times you're picking up and you're laying back down for another presentation. If your fly leader is too low in the water column and it's sagging down like this because you have all fluoro leader, it's going to be really hard for you to make a long line pickup very quietly and effectively to be able to make a nice back cast and then drop your next cast, okay? So it's really important to keep that fly high in the water column for that as well. The higher the fly is, the easier it is. It's going to be able to break the tension of the line real easy and pull that fly right out of the water for a real quick single back cast, and bam, you're right back in the water, right for another presentation, and you're saving valuable time, right then, it's because every second counts when those fish are changing angles on you. So being able to do it quick is huge. So that's another reason why the floating mono leaders is the best. So now we're going to break down from our 40 to our 30, 0.022. Again, one more arm length. Now we're getting to smaller mono here. Hold on one second. Bam. Easy to work with. Give yourself plenty of room. We're going to make 4 and 5 on this. 3, 4 on the 40. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, lubricating on every one of those, and then I'm going to dunk it as well. You can see how nice and smooth my knots are coming. You cannot have enough lubrication, I'm telling you. This is heavy line to be tying blood knots with, and look how beautiful and smooth these knots are coming up when we rip on this one a little bit more. Nice. Can't beat that. I'm liking it. And again, if you ever find where your blood knots don't seat up correctly all the way, it's probably one of two things. You're not lubing it enough, or you have too many wraps per the diameter that you have. So now, I think you can get away with it, but I like to do it all the time. Now we're going to break to a shock on the tarpon leaders. So we're going to break up to 50 pound. On a really, really calm day, I might continue on with a straight piece of 40 off the end. For a smaller diameter fluoro, so really high sun, super clear water, super spooky fish, easy fix, clip back, put on some 40 fluoro and you're good to go. 50 is probably my average general all the time, and then when it's really, really windy or it's ripping, it's low light, kind of hard, and you don't have to worry about much of the fish seeing you fly or the leader connection, no worries. We can go to 60 pound, no problem at all. And the only reason to do that is abrasion resistance on the fish. So if you're lucky enough, most of the time when you catch a tarpon and you actually land it to the boat, the fly is stuck in 2 spots almost 80% of the time. One right here on the side where your cheek is soft. When you open up your mouth, you can feel how soft your cheek is. And 2 is right around the upper part of the lip. Both spots enable a good hook set because it's a softer part of the fish's mouth, because 80% of the tarpon's mouth is all bone. So if you are lucky to get stuck in those 2 soft spots, you're in a good spot, and plus you don't have any abrasion resistance there. The hook is stuck around the upper part of the lip. Usually the leader comes over the top, and then there's no abrasion resistance on the top part of the lip, which is killer. Boom, land the fish. Or if you get stuck here, the leader comes out the side of its mouth where there is no abrasion resistance at all, therefore land the fish. So in all reality, you don't need a shock at all if you're lucky enough to get the fly stuck in those 2 spots all the time, but that's not the case because a large part of their mouth is all bone. So if you stick that hard bone area, you need to put a lot of pressure on it and stay tight. And a lot of times you're going to end up getting that abrasion on the outside. So I like to have the fluoros a little more stiffer, and also it gives you a little extra added edge, whether it's on the water or even in your head, for a little extra confidence to know that you're going to be able to actually have the utmost stealth to try to get that fish to eat your fly. So we're going to put our 50 on here. 0.024. It's a little upgrade, not much. So it's almost like having a direct connection all the way through. You're going to contain a lot of your energy in the system this way. Increase your odds of that straight line presentation big time. Again, nice and easy. And anybody that says you can't connect fluoro and mono, I don't know what they're talking about, because you can. But I am going to do 5 turns on the 30 and 4 turns on the 50 shot. Now, since the diameters are so close, we can keep the barrel wraps close. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, what's really interesting to me is working with my son BJ, who's starting out guiding here real soon. I've noticed that when I showed him how to do these blood knots originally, beautiful, he had a hard time getting them to seat up like I did. Even though he did the same amount of wraps, he actually did the same amount of lubrications and everything. And what was really interesting is I noticed that he had slight different movements in his fingers and how he wraps. So I said, all right, let's try this. Do it exactly how I do it with the fingers and wraps. and next thing you know, he's able to tie them perfectly. I have no idea why that works so big deal, but get into your own groove on tying these knots so you're really proficient at it, and so that way when you find yourself on the boat, tarpon fishing, it's hot, here comes a school of fish, and you need to re-rig, you don't have to pull your guide down off the platform when he's trying to pull the boat, keep you on the fish all the time. It's really important that you understand everything about the leader system here is huge, and that's why we're bringing all this information to you today. So again, here's our breakdown. Perfection loop, 80 pound down to 60 pound, down to 50 pound, 40, 30, and then a 50 pound fluoro shock, and we're good to go. So we should be close to 12 foot, which is perfect. I'm 5'10". 2 full stretches is just about 11 feet, and you add a little bit more, so we're at 12. So if you want to do a little longer, you totally can do that, and if you need to do a little shorter for whatever reasons, you can do that too. A lot of it has to do with how long your front taper is on the fly line that you're choosing to use. The shorter the front taper is, and the larger the diameter of the end of that front taper, will have a big difference on how much power and energy is transferred into that leader. So dry fly lines usually have a pretty long front taper, sometimes 6, 7, or 10 feet long, and then they end with a small diameter. So that's because they want a slack presentation, so right away they can start mending and keep a long drag-free drift. We want completely the opposite in the salt. We want that line, leader, and fly to lay out straight, bam, right now. I don't care how it lays out, just get it out straight right now. Most of the time it's really windy, and you don't have to worry about the line hitting the water too rough or whatever. And if you get into a situation where it's really super calm and the fish are super spooky and you need a really soft presentation, then just lead them more. You just give them a bigger lead, and with the floating mono that you used and maybe a floating fly or a high profile fly, you'll be able to keep your fly in the zone, in favorable zone for that fish, and give yourself plenty of time to work with. So with this setup, I promise you, you're going to be able to take full advantage of all your tarpon opportunities. So check it out and give it a try. And check out hatchoutdoors.com for more cool videos just like this.